Tiny House Prepper.
One lonely night. The fire, it glowed cheery and fiery and merry. We all longed to tarry round Grandpa's old chair. His face grinned and winkled and twinkled, all crinkled and wrinkled. Bright were his black eyes, and snow was his hair. We begged for a story, adventure and glory, preferably gory, for scary and hoary were Grandpa's fine tales. Tell us, we crowed, of that night when it snowed, and how the wind howled, and how the wind blowed, when you were a small boy way over in Wales. He chuckled and said, then you must go to bed, with no clamor nor crying nor pleading or sighing. We promised, complying, replying our eyes with a nod of our head. Flickering firelight, eyes wide with fright, shivering and quivering in terror's delight, we listened to Grandpa unspinning his tales of one long, lonely night as a small boy in Wales. I'd been out exploring the moors all the day. Among gorse and bracken, I lay on soft heather and watched the birds soar and laughed at their play. Far too long I'd been gone, and too far had I wandered, and soft felt the heather and warm was the sun. As eventide came, quite soundly I slept. The sun crept down slowly till darkness was left. But unconscious was I to the clouds in the sky and the soft falling snow shrouding me, piling high. I awoke to a nightful of storm growing frightful, hateful and fretful, terrible, spiteful. Wind screaming round me to trap and surround me, its haunting cry hound me like a goblin had found me. Cold wind snatched me up, my old jacket was tore, and I stumbled and shivered, shook and quivered to feel its hard slap in the deafening roar. While at home, Ma was pacing, fine brow wrinkles tracing her forehead, her eyes filled with worry and care. Many hours she'd been calling me, calling and calling, but the shrieking wind laughed, and her cry swept away, and she fell on her knees and started to pray. I heard gentle lowing, how snow was snowing and blowing and rippling and flowing, no way of knowing where I was going. Small shadows were sneaking, wee phantoms a-peeking and furtively seeking what? I did not know. All that I knew was the cold and the snow. The snow came down stronger, the shadows stretched longer and narrow they shimmered and came. Down my back chills were creeping, shudders all keeping my eyes full of weeping, as hot tears flowed seeping down cheeks red as flame. But just as my eyes, heart, and brain turned to ice, my skin felt a warmth like from blue summer skies. As I sank to the snow and felt the warm breath, I knew with sharp dread I was freezing to death. The thought sent me shaking and trembling with fear as I lay there crying and numbing and dying. I heard in my heart my mother's sweet prayer, and I felt a hot breath touch the tip of my ear. A soft muzzle sniffing me, calm brown eyes watching. Above me there stood a huge buck, tall and white. His silence as loud as the howl of the wind. He shone like a lantern light, soft in the night. Gently he nudged me, urged me, budged me to move my stiff body and stand on numb feet. Slowly I stood and shakily stood, then swaying and balancing best as I could, I clung to his side and breathed his silk heat. Then steady and slow through the blizzard we strode, its stinging spray smacking me, whistling and whacking me, rattling, racking me, whipping my back like the point of a goad. Hours went by, more light grew the sky. I stumbled and fumbled, mumbling I crumbled and helplessly tumbled, in snow piling high, legs melting like butter, throat burning dry. The deer stood above me, no more did he shove me, but silently gazed at the flurrying haze, and the world seemed to dance in a dizzying daze. Through the ice in my head, I could dreamily hear a strong ringing voice, though the words were not clear. Soon strong arms were shaking me, slapping me, waking me, lifting me, taking me back home to comfort my poor mother's fears, who, missing me, kissing me, smiled through her tears. wrapped up in front of a fire bright and warm, relieved to be living and free from the storm, I told of the creature who saved me from harm. Now all through the villages, cottages, towns, they tell of a ghost deer, tall, silent, and white. They call him a phantom, a spirit, a wight. A few long to trap him, a rare one they'd say, though only a deer in the light of the day. I alone knew when I prayed in warm light, my thanks for the angel you sent me tonight. The old man stopped speaking, his rocking chair squeaking. He tipped back and forth, his eyes smiled at the sight. Sleeping and dreaming of winds cold and screaming, and heather and birds, and a deer silver warm. The children were snuggled and nestled content. Grandpa sat rocking and knew what it meant to lower his eyes, his head lowly bent, saying, "Thank you for angels you send in a storm."